So I remember what that felt like. You know, it was like, because you kind of feel like, man, these people don't believe in you, and they don't, you know, they're thinking, that's the best you can do. I'm not saying that's what they said. That's how I felt, you know.
Mr. Willie Robertson. Howdy, sir. How are you?
Doing great.
It's an honor to have you here on the podcast. Thank you so much for doing this. You've got a new book that's out.
I do, yeah. The Gospeller.
Can you talk to us about that? What's the book about?
It's about sharing your faith, and the word Gospeller means someone that shares their faith either publicly or personally. It's an old word that used to be in the language. There was even I found an old law like somewhere in the Northeast where it said no one can stop a priest or a known Gospeller from sharing their faith on the public square or something. I had never heard of the word. I was writing the book, and my wife actually found the word, and she came and said, I found this cool word. I don't know if, and I read it, and I was like, oh, I love it. And so the idea of the book was kind of, in a way, trying to change culture and to where we would have these conversations. And so I kind of love the idea of a word, something that we used to do that kind of went away, and maybe trying to bring that back. So, and then I was trying to figure out a subtitle for the book, and I really couldn't think of anything. And to kind of narrow it down, you know, to what I was kind of the message. And I'm in the hunting business, and so I had a line of optics coming out this fall. And I was looking through the marketing material that they had sent me, and it's a button use. So it's like when it gets kind of low light, you can click a button and it just brightens everything up in your scope. And the tagline said, "Turn darkness to light," and that was the marketing for a business deal. Which again, I love the symbolism of that too, which is because I feel like we've, as a family, weaved our business and faith all together. And I said, that's the tagline for the book. And so the subtitle was Turning Darkness to Light, One Conversation at a Time. And it was just perfect. So once I had that, and then and I came up with my chapters, and Gospeller was kind of an unusual word for people to pronounce. So each chapter title rhymes with the title. So the first chapter is called Swamp Dweller. That rhymes with Gospeller. So 8 of them were kind of easy. 2 of them were a little, I had to go deep in the dictionary vault to find the
thesaurus came out.
To words that kind of, that I found some cool words. Yeah, and so that was kind of the idea of the book and the name and the title. This was it was kind of a COVID book because I was in a situation because I speak a lot, and we were home like everyone else, and so I really wasn't doing much. And our church, I don't know about you guys out here, but we were down for, as far as church building, for about maybe a month, and then it cranked back up. So this was about the time, and I'd heard before COVID, I was at a conference and I was speaking, and they had some breakout classes, and Lee Strobel was doing a breakout class. I didn't know who Lee Strobel was.
I love Lee Strobel.
I didn't know about the Case for Christ, any of that. But the title was called Evangelism, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to go hear that. And so I go in this class, and later I met Lee, and he said, I didn't think you were paying attention. You were looking down the whole time. I said, I was taking notes the whole time. And so he kind of put this idea out there like, we don't have like specific ministries towards sharing your faith. Like many churches have many ministries. You know, you have teens and college and young adults and widow ministry. I mean, there's all these ministries, but there's very rarely there's a specific ministry on sharing your faith. And as you read the New Testament, it seems like a really important part of it. And so he kind of challenged us, and he said, go back to your local churches and ask them, do they have any kind of specific ministry? He said, just listen to the answer. And he kind of told us what it'd probably be. And so I go back to this church I was at, and I was kind of new there, so I didn't really know the people or kind of what they did. And I said, is there a specific ministry like just for evangelism? And they were like, no, I mean, like, I said, who's in charge? And they were like, I guess the preacher, you know, like, and that's what he said would happen. Mm-hmm. And so about a month later, I get a call from the pastors, and they said, hey, do you want to start that ministry? And I was like, well, I guess I put my foot in my mouth. I guess I got to start it now. I said, sure. And so, again, I wasn't traveling, so I was home a lot. And so I started writing all this material of what would be kind of a class and how I would go through and kind of how I would share that more educationally than, practically as well, and just kind of walking through there. And it was real fascinating because I was kind of getting all the data from like on the ground doing it, So I was asking people, did they share their faith? I mean, incidentally, we had, and this is a pretty big church. It's like 3,000 people. And so I'd ask them at the beginning, I said, well, I had a notebook and a piece of paper, and I said, give me all the people here who actively share their faith. And I was assuming 30 or 40 people would, they would, and I would say, we'll get them first and we'll create it. You know how many names I got?
One.
Wow.
One name.
Wow.
One name from someone who was known to actually share their faith. And the funny thing about the one name I got was he was in his 70s and he passed out these tracts, like in the kind of neighborhoods. And I said, well, we can improve on this, And so we started the class and started doing that. And then I was at another conference, a religious conference. It was actually on global evangelism with David Platt, and we were talking there. I was sitting at a table with another guy who was in the publishing business, and he said, "What you been up to?" And I said, "Oh, I'm teaching this class on." I said, "It's real fascinating. I'm learning a lot." And I showed him how I did it, and he was like, "I've never seen it quite like that. It's real simple." And he said, "You should write a book on that." And that's where I got the idea to write the book.
Got it.
And so I said, "Hey, I'll jump in." I jumped into doing the class so I can jump in. And I said, "Yeah, we'll just see." And, a lot of it I wanted to capture. There were a lot of stories I put in here about me sharing my own faith with people. I just wanted to capture those, if nothing else, for my kids, my grandkids. And so just so they could know, because as time goes on, we kind of forget these stories. And which I think that's why the Bible is so important. It's the collection of these stories of what happened. And I was always fascinated, really interested, and we can talk later about kind of where that started for me. But like, I wanted to see what happened, like what did they tell people, especially once Jesus had been resurrected. What was the story? And so I put pretty much most of those encounters in the book. What did they say? What was the language they used? How did they kind of guide them through that? And and so it's in 3 parts. It's like my gospel story, and then it's the gospel story, and it's the responses to the gospel. And it's weird, when you go back to just the Bible and you go back and read it, to me it's amazing how we'll get off, it's been a couple of thousand years, but groups will get away from actually what the Bible is. You'll start to cater it to your own little culture, church, or whatever. And next thing you know, it's like how did we get here, And they really don't even know. And so I kind of wanted to take it back. And this book it's not necessarily, like I didn't write it for churches or pastor. I wrote it for the church, like for an individual who can go share their faith with someone they know or don't know. It's not always just stranger encounters, but that happens. But because the Bible says that we should always be prepared to give an answer for the hope that we have, and so part of that preparation is what would you do and how would you do it? And what would you need to know? And just like we prepare for probably. You guys have done this. I can see there's preparation. If you're going to do a podcast, you've got to be prepared. Yeah. What would you do and how would you do that? And y'all can probably attest to that. I don't know how many y'all have done, but like you get better the more you do it, right?
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
I hope so.
Yeah, you start to go like, and so it was kind of I wanted to encourage people, because what I found was when I taught my class, when I talked to people, is that a lot of people, especially people of the church, they've disqualified themselves from the start. Like, well, that's not my thing. That's not my gift. I don't know the Bible well enough. That's a big one. One of the biggest ones was I don't know where to start. Like, I don't know where to start. And so those are the things we try to attempt to tackle in this book, are those kind of issues that come up. Or I'm too bad. Like, I live such a bad life. I'm the last person to be telling anybody else about anything.
So often who God chooses, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, especially from the Bible.
Yes.
So I just put all that in there and kind of told my own story, and that how I'm because the idea of being a gospeller it's not necessarily pastoral. And that's a big problem, which is people think, well, isn't that what the pastor's supposed to do? Mm-hmm. So, and that's such a bad mentality. It's like one person, is supposed to, you know,
and you're not going to find him in a bar where somebody really needs to hear something, or
you wouldn't
on the side
think,
of the
right?
road,
Yeah, you wouldn't think that that's, and but that's kind of a misguided. I mean, if I were the devil, I would. That's a beautiful thing, I think, for the evil one to be like thoughts like, why don't you just keep that to yourself? Well, boom. I mean, he's already neutralized you right there. Like, I don't need. It's my personal relationship. I don't tell anybody else about it. And so, I think a lot of these things probably come from the evil one. And but what I found is a lot of people want to do it. They just, they don't know where to get started. And so, hopefully, the book will get, some conversation started. We'll get people perhaps reading the Bible and reading it for a purpose. I think it's great to read the Bible, but when I read it also for a purpose of learning so that I can try to apply that not only to my life, but now to teach it to someone else. So, and that's the case I lay out. So if you look at Matthew 28, the end of it, which is the Great Commission, which is part of a mission, and Jesus gives them a mission to do. And so those are the things I like really hone in on and say, what exactly did he say to do when he left? What were the instructions? You guys have kids, you probably leave and you're like, look, here's what, or you guys with each other, your spouse, you're like, look, all right, I'm leaving. Here's what I make sure, and you give the list, as do I. And so really, I think in that,
right? Didn't he feed my sheep?
That's it. Yeah. And so in Matthew 28, he gives three things. He says, go and make disciples of all nations. So we got make disciples, baptize people, and teach people. Those are three specific things. And what I found is a lot of people live their Christian lives, they're not anywhere near those three things. They're not making disciples or baptizing people or teaching people. And so the question is, why? Because it seemed like, because Jesus was pretty specific, and he wasn't, I don't think he was telling that to just those people there. That was for everyone. Because sometimes I think we misinterpret. We're like, well, those were like super duper religious people. In Acts chapter 4, they're described as, from their peers, as ordinary, unschooled people. So that's how the people around them saw them. They didn't see them like we see, like Peter and John. We're like, those are like the people that they were around were like, oh, they're just regular fishermen, like nothing special, right? And so, because I think we're thinking they were like, seminary trained theologian. No, they weren't that at all. And those was the instructions. So if you're off on your mission, if you think the mission in life is to try to go to church and try to be a good person, that's not a mission. And I think that's why people feel so empty, because they're like, is this all there is? And so you're going once a week for an hour, and you're thinking that's I guess that's where it is. It's so much more. I've always said, like, why don't you just take that hour and do whatever you want to do, and give me the 6.5 days. The rest of the time, we'll go change the world. Like when you're living it on that kind of pace, as opposed to just one quick time. And so that's part of the mission where I was like, when Jesus was here, that's what he said, and I lay that out. He gives another clue, like when he runs into Zacchaeus. He invites himself over, because I'm taking it from like, how did the conversation start? In that particular one, Jesus invited himself over to someone's house, which is a pretty bold move, right? He's like, I'm coming to your house. And this is a very unlikable dude. No one likes him. No one likes his job, or probably him as a person. He was a tax collector. So Jesus goes over to his house, and this is the difference in what I look for. It's not just having conversations. There's an element of a conversation that can change if something needs to be changed. So Zacchaeus then is like, I'll give money back to people I've stolen from. Like, he just starts repenting, is what we find out later what that is. And so he says all that, and then Jesus says, this is why I came. The Son of Man came to seek and save what was lost. That's what he describes as why I came to this earth, is to seek and save others. And another big one is when he calls Peter. The only thing that he says is, follow me and I'll make you fishers of people. So you start seeing, like, this is a big deal. This is not, so I feel like sometimes in churches we're like, someone nods their hand up, like, I think I just got saved. And no one ever talks about going after people. Like and so I feel like some people would say, I didn't even know that was part of the deal. And what if it's the whole deal? The whole deal is not just for you to get, it's for then others. And so what I like about living a lifestyle of sharing your faith, there's so many other things that'll naturally happen just when you do that. So one is, I'm going to read the Bible because I'm sitting with people and asking them questions, and I want to know the answers of where I can show them or guide them to that. So it keeps me in the Word, which is great. Probably the biggest thing it does, it keeps me from focusing in on just myself, because now I'm focusing outward.
Yes.
And I think a big problem, especially today, especially in our churches with Christians, is such an inward focus. It's like we just want to hear what affects us and my life and my kids, and and even the messages we'll hear will do that. It'd be like, it's just really focused on you. It's not towards and all of a sudden you get this real kind of inside the building mentality, and people get up and yell and scream about the world and how crazy they are. And one of my chapters is called Hope Yeller, because we've become really good at just spewing out the negativity about what we see, even in our country, about how bad we are and where we're going. But the question is, do we have any answers? Where's the hope? Like, where's the good news? Jesus said, the gospel is good news. And but we'll get on Facebook and we'll get on the internet. We'll just be like this, I just saw this and I saw this. And can you believe this? And can you believe it's just, and we're all just like yelling at each other about how bad everybody is, but nobody's really having the conversations with the people that are, where is that conversation, that inviting yourself over to someone's house who is, nobody likes him because he's a evil, worldly guy, and actually giving him good news and giving him the opportunity to change. And so that's kind of the where the book goes and what it tries to explain.
So you're taking a very direct, proactive approach, it sounds like, with this book. And is this something that has changed and evolved over time with you and your family and the sharing of the gospel? Because as an outsider, my perspective has always been that you guys have done a great job of including your faith. That's definitely been a massive element of what it is that you've done, but you put it in a very entertaining package, at least with the show, to go back to Duck Dynasty. How has that changed over time, if at all?
Like, do you feel more free now that the show's kind of wrapped up, that you can focus on something? Did you feel limited by that? Or?
I don't know that I would describe it as that, because one, I don't think it's changed because we were doing the same things before, just no one knew about it. It was just a really small scale. In fact, that's one of the reasons that Dad even agreed to do the show. He didn't want to do it, and he had no interest in doing a TV show. But I said, well, it's a bigger platform. Maybe we could share the gospel with more people. And he was like, all right, I guess if that's the case, then I'll do it just for the sake of that. Because the thing is, you don't plan in life, and I haven't thought about this till you asked the question, but it's great, I think, for everyone, even people that are listening, no matter what your job is or where you're at. I mean, I don't know how long you guys been doing this, but I'm sure there was a time in your life you never saw yourself talking in microphones, being recorded and sharing it with other people. I mean, just even the idea wasn't even there.
Yes.
So as life comes along and gives you a different opportunity, as you said, packaging and entertainment, entertainment just happened to where it ended up. I had no idea. I didn't even know that we would be on TV. I didn't go seek that. I didn't go out and put a resume in for TV shows or reality shows. Even I didn't watch reality TV shows. Someone came to us and said, hey, in fact, it was Corey's idea to do a reality show. She watched reality TV, and she said, Willie, your family, y'all should do a reality TV show. And I was like, what? And I remember telling her, I said, Corey, we're just a normal family. And she said, Willie, y'all ain't normal. I said, what? And then we were approached to do a show on the Outdoor Channel. And I saw it really as an opportunity at that point, probably more business, because it's not going to be a religious show. It's going to be a show about hunting and all that. Now, the natural parts of the show were going to be, we weren't going to be fighting or cursing or have nudity. That was just who we are. And so that show was really popular. We did that 3 seasons actually, and then someone saw that in Los Angeles, saw that show, and just they didn't send it to me. They sent an email to the general information box at Duck Commander, and probably those things probably never get even read, you know, sometimes, you know, especially now. So many of those come in, and I remember the secretary brought it to me. It was like, do you want to respond, or do you want me to respond, or do you just want to ignore it? I said, I'll respond to him. And it was just a producer. And so I sent him back an email. I asked, Willie, I run the company. What are you thinking? And we got on the phone and talked, and he said, man, I think y'all have a big show, you know. And so we had done 3 seasons of TV, smaller, but still TV. And it was shot real well, video-wise. So we made a little sizzle reel and showed it. He showed it to a bunch of networks and had a lot of interest. And A&E came out of nowhere. A&E's out of New York, owned by Disney, actually. And and they said they wanted to do 2 pilots, which I had no idea what that even meant. And so we did the 2 pilots, and they liked it. And they didn't even know what exactly. I don't think they knew exactly what this show. I think they thought it was going to be more kind of like swamp people with beards and kind of like, you know, they probably seen pictures of us and were like, these guys. And
like moonshiners or something.
Well, yeah, like real super backwards. And so after they saw the pilots, they called and said, well, we got good news and bad news. The bad news is this is not the show that we ordered. Like they're like, this is not what we. The good news is it's better than the show that we actually ordered. Like, and they were like, we think it's a family show. Which they just didn't. If you saw us, you wouldn't think family. And so, because I don't know that everyone knew that it was going to be more like a comedy, like as funny as it would be. And so they ordered 13 episodes, sight unseen. I think it was the biggest pickup at the time they'd ever made without at least showing it to the public. Generally, they'll make 4 and then put them on TV and see if, you know, what the ratings are. And the guy that picked this up, it was the first show he had picked up for A&E. He had just gotten there, and this was the first show. Wow. It's a good one to pick up. Yeah. And so that show went on to be the most watched show in the history of reality TV show, or non-scripted, in the history of cable television. It'll probably never be broken the way, because now it's different, you know, with all the streamers and all that. And so
all those people.
Yeah. So to answer your question, like, I feel like we're doing the same thing. I mean, I talk about, even when I talk about my gospel story, I mean, there were struggles. I mean, when fame comes like that, there's no guide, or, you know, it's not like there's a playbook for that. You know, there's nobody to call really and say, hey, right? And so you've got to then become, you know, really proficient at media, and it's a lot of pressure, you know. And when you're in the spotlight, especially that big, as hot as we were there, you know, and everybody's just calling and all that. And so, there were struggles, and then, but you know, that faith, you know, it's there, and that heart to share our faith was there. And it's the first chapter of the book is Swamp Dweller was actually a reference to my father, who we made a movie last fall called The Blind. And
great movie. Great.
So when you see that, you understand, like, had that not happened, none of this would have happened. Yes. So you understand the appreciation. It's not just looking, I mean, one huge part is one reason we're so active about sharing our faith and staying true to who we are is because we feel like we owe everything to that. Because had the guy not went up there, he was a gospeller, he went up there and preached to Phil at the bar. Had that not happened, because it was over. I mean, the marriage was over. You know, Mom had already moved, and so that was the only thing left, was a wholesale, complete life change, obeying the gospel. And then, so the first chapter is about that, and I talk about my gospel genealogy, and because we've gotten into like genealogy and done 23andMe and where you came from. And I thought more importantly was how you pass this down spiritually, and what are the connections that were made. And for Mom and Dad, that's where it started for them when they were like in their 20s, 28 years old and 27. And I didn't, you know, I had no idea. I'm just a little kid, you know, like a 2-year-old. And I had no idea the impact. Had that not happened, my whole life would be completely different. There would have been no Duck Commander. Like there would have been no, so therefore no Duck Dynasty. No, I wouldn't have, you know, I met Corey at a church camp. That was a new, you know, church camp became new. Church was new, you know. And that's where I actually, in 5th grade, I met who would become my wife. Jace met his wife at the church as well. And so, and then we have kids, and then now like Sadie's all over the world with podcasts. So you just think about, like, I remember seeing a stat like the viewership in 2013 was like 110 million people for Duck Dynasty. That's just one year.
Yeah.
It wasn't just in America, it was all over the world.
Right.
So there's numerous countries that the show went to. It ended in a prayer, which was very unheard of. You didn't see any big show like that with a prayer on it.
That's the best part, really. I mean, you guys are so dang relatable.
Yeah.
You just are, because you don't come across as these fancy reality TV people. You come across as someone you want to barbecue with and have a beer with, you know, and go hunting with. And
right.
So you're so relatable. But then it's all about family, and it shows all these guys that are a little rough around the edges, and you know, people like you that just want to be out there shooting at turkeys and doing whatever, and that you can have this family and this faith, and it doesn't mean that you're this uppity, prissy person, or
no, not
you
at
don't
all.
chew, you don't have a beer, you don't sit around a bonfire. So I
think it was a different. Hopefully it was. It helped with that, and I mean, like all the millions of people watch the TV show now with the podcast, the movies, the books we've written. I mean, you're talking about millions and millions and millions of people. And I can trace that back to that one couple with 3 little boys in South Arkansas, no money, no anything. The gospel came in. And so one way I look back and I'm appreciative, I'm like, wow, that was so close to not happening. But I can look forward and think, who will I share with that could change their whole family dynamics, change their marriage, change their kids, change their grandkids, change their whole, who knows, when we think about, we've got adopted kids. And so think about they're with us and they're exposed to the gospel as well. And so just a whole different lease on life on how that is. So that's pretty powerful stuff. And I think it did. I think the show, it probably was a little bit different I think, relatability was certainly, I think authenticity is probably the main thing that, because you just got the sense, I think, like it's hard for me to say that because I was part of it, but you got the sense that, hey, this is authentic, it's not, we weren't trying to be on TV and trying to get rich and famous, it's more like, this is who we are. This is what, we're not going to shy away from our faith, but we're not going to be weird, and we're not going to be like, I know a lot of weird Christians, so I'm like, hopefully,
super normal.
Hopefully you're right. You can have us over and we could, have a beer and drink, eat barbecue and, and just have a fun time without. And the show is like, Dad always wanted like more preaching. I said, Dad, this is not the show. If you want to come back and know more, we'll just give somebody something positive. Not trying to shove anything down your throat. If you want to know more, you can read a book. You can come find out more and do that. But oftentimes, even with the conversations, when I have a conversation with someone, I try to just like, how would I have a normal conversation? Where would that start? And generally I'm always trying to get their story. I'm just like, what's your story? Tell me about who you are. And that's usually where it starts. I talk about John chapter 4, the woman at the well. Jesus has this conversation with a woman, and he probably shouldn't even have the conversation. They weren't from the same region. She was a woman. They didn't talk to men back then. And the question the big question was, can I get a drink of water? Like, that's where it started. It was such a simple. And so I think we overcomplicate it thinking I got to know all this stuff. He just started there. He started talking about her story. He's telling her spiritual things about living water. She doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. And which is normal. So a lot of times when I'm talking to people, they don't understand all. I grew up in this and know a lot of the Bible, and so.
And it doesn't have to be everything all at once.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't shock me that they don't understand that. And I have 7 passages. That's what I generally share with people. And in fact, I don't try to give them too many more because that's about all I can take at one time.
We want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Surfshark VPN. All of our business, our shopping, even a lot of our social life now happens online, which makes us so grateful for Surfshark VPN. Whether we're here at home or on the go traveling like we were to record this episode of the podcast, we rest assured in knowing that our online security is safe thanks to Surfshark. Now, if you don't know what a VPN is, it stands for a virtual private network. And trust me when I tell you, you want one. Surfshark VPN keeps your online security safe by encrypting all of the information you send from your devices to the internet. Essentially, it blurs it like a mask, which protects your information from big companies and cyber criminals. Another awesome feature of using a VPN is that it allows you to switch your actual virtual location with a new one. So you can virtually travel to any country around the globe. This is particularly helpful with streaming services like Netflix because different countries offer different titles. So if you have a streaming service, you can literally access thousands of different titles not available here in the US. Something else Melissa and I really appreciate is their antivirus because Surfshark keeps your devices virus-free with real-time protections and scheduled scans. So if you do business, shopping, streaming, or socializing online, then you need a VPN to protect your private information, especially if you use your phone or computer on any public Wi-Fi networks while away from home. We chose Surfshark because they're highly rated, they don't store any of our personal information, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Plus, they're one of the only VPNs that allow for you to protect all of your devices under one account. Our thanks to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. If you'd like to try Surfshark VPN out for yourself, just go to surfshark.deals/NWOS and use our code NWOS for an extra 4 months. Now let's get back to our conversation with Willie Robertson.
So I have 7, so that's where I start. I'm like, if you can learn 7 passages, you can at least know. I can take you from the gospel to the response of it and all that, just from 7 little things. That story ends up in John chapter 4. The whole village ends up coming to know Jesus, and it all started just with that one conversation. And when he's getting her story, he's asking her about her. He said, "Go get your husband." She's like, "I don't have a husband," which was part of the truth, not the whole truth, and, which is understandable. She didn't know this guy. And then it was interesting though. Why did he keep pushing? And then he tells her basically her whole story about her past marriages. Because I think Jesus knew if you don't deal with this, you're never gonna. You're gonna be held by this your whole life. I mean, these towns are small, but even as I travel around and. All towns are small, all businesses are small, what I'm saying? Everybody knows everything. Yeah. And so I think we're trying to hide or, that. And he knew, he said, we're going to deal with this. And he was still there. He was still there talking to her. He didn't go like, judge or anything like that. And so there's probably such a freedom of release. In fact, when she went back to the village, she says something that was so interesting to me. She says, y'all got to go meet this guy. He told me everything I've ever done. That should be a negative. Yeah. Like I would be like, don't talk to him. He knows what, but it was a positive for her. Because I think she probably for the first time in her life, she was probably releasing that going, oh, thank goodness, there's something better. Because the damage was done, right? So I think for a lot of people, that's where we end up, and that's the people that I think we need to have conversations with. A lot of the damage is done. There's nothing you can do. It's your past. You got to move on. And so, and that's I think the beautiful part of Christianity is this idea of change and redemption, and that's why I started with Phil because he was able to move on from that and then live this awesome. Great life. Even making the movie, I know it was hard for him to go back and
have to retell
but the hardest parts of your life. Yeah. But again, he did that because he was wanting to share the gospel. Yeah. And so we've heard so many people that have been like, I saw this, and it's a great cheater way to preach the gospel to somebody. You don't have to take them to a church. You can just watch a movie.
The movie was powerful. It really was. We were watching it with my mom and dad. And my mom, she got married when she was 19, and her story is your mom's story. Oh, wow. Only hers didn't end in the same way. Nobody came and saved her husband. Nobody came and shared the gospel with him. And she left with her 2 little boys, and her story ended so differently. But all of that evil before was there in her home, and she kept getting up and leaving the movie. I'm like, Mom, don't you like this movie? Like, I just paid $2.99 to watch this movie. Like, you sit down and watch the movie. And she's like, it's too hard to watch because it was so real. You guys did such a great job. Like it resonated. It was so real to rewatch those sines for her. Yeah, and
it was hard for us to watch. It was hard to make. It was hard to make it not rated R. Because his life was very rated R. Yeah. And it was very difficult, but we wanted, that's the way we wanted, that's the way Phil wanted it. He wanted just to lay it out there and
be real.
By the end it's good. And that's a shame, right? That's someone shared with your mom's husband. That's, well, and so those are the opportunities, like at that time, and that's what happened for us. And so, I guess the idea is if we had more people who knew, who wouldn't hold themselves back or just say like, I'm out, I'm not the kind of person who could do that. And hopefully you'll see from the simplicity of this book, it's like, hey, I could do that. And I could at least, start a conversation with someone. And oftentimes you start, and you may not know exactly what it is, but you just jump in there and, just have a conversation and figure out where it goes,
I think you guys have done a lot of encouraging throughout the years. I mean, just even with the show, just showing the strength of the family unit, where I love that you are so goofy and fun, but yet you're still a leader in your family. You're still respected as the father, and Phil is still respected as the father. And I think that's so important, because now when we watch television or even commercials, like, he's always complaining. He's like, why is the dad always such an idiot? Like, and he's not respected by his children.
Every time.
Every time.
It's the formula. It's the recipe.
Dad's a doofus. Yep. Mom's a smart one. The kids are always back talking and rolling their eyes. And our show could have easily been like that had we. And I'll tell you a little bit of why that happens. And not that. I mean, I've definitely seen some goofy dads. I'm like, God, is that all you're into? You know,
you are Homer Simpson. Yeah.
But part of the problem is a lot of that TV comes out of L.A. or the big, wherever whoever's making TV, and it's the only thing they know. Like, they just assume everybody's like, they're not in other states. They don't know, and so it gets made like that because they're like, I guess that's how everybody is. And so a lot of the sitcoms, well, it's all the same kind of writers, who are writing the stuff. And then once that becomes that way, it's like that becomes reality, but it's not really. Because a lot of those people don't know, like they didn't know how people in Louisiana live, They don't know how people in Arkansas live, or, or even Washington or like it may be, and people maybe in urban areas live differently than people that are not in urban areas, or they're in suburbs, or especially, if you're out in the sticks like us. And so, to where it is a different kind of, and even then you don't know how Christians who are really, practicing their faith live as opposed to people who aren't. So all those things, so you start seeing those threads, of how that is. And there were even parts of our show that they would, the producers would come try to, tell my kids, like, go tell your dad, And what's funny is they wouldn't. And I wouldn't do it, Phil, I was like, no, I would never say that to him. I just wouldn't. And not that I am, Phil and I are a lot different. I do like the goofier stuff and to laugh. And I got that from Mom more. And, but I like that part, but there's still a respect level that you would have, and you just be like, no, I would never say that, and or be like that. But I think part of what we had too that was, and hopefully we still have, is that the ability to laugh at yourself. Like, I can laugh at myself. I can be like, oh, this is hilarious, And so I think that comes from not taking yourself so seriously, And golly, I run into so many people, I'm just like, really? Like, you are taking yourself so seriously, and it just makes me want to laugh, and it makes me kind of just want to make fun and just be fun with it, because I'm like, oh, there's so much heavy stuff in life, man. You got to be able to laugh too, and you can
have fun with your family too. But like, we can poke so much fun at each other because we know that we love each other and we know that we're a team, and so that humor doesn't hurt each other's feelings. Like, we think it's funny, but we, outside of the podcast, we do vlogging. Like, we kind of have our own family show on YouTube that we've done for over 4 years, and we get a lot of criticism, like, he shouldn't say that to you. She shouldn't say that to him. Don't do that to your daughter or whatever. Our kids are homeschooled, so we have to razz them because they're going to get out into the world. And if we've never teased them, they're not going to know what to do when someone does.
Eaten alive.
Yeah.
That's the way we were. And I mean, it was brutal, growing up. And and that's part of the problem. If you put stuff out, everybody's going to then start judging it. And
but it's like, we're
I don't
not mad
even,
at
that's
each
why
other.
I don't even read the comment. I never look at it. I never read it. Because I don't even, I'm like, I don't want to have anybody to have that much power where they can actually adjust what I think. Just some guy sitting in, some living room in, Missouri, like
one
made me actually,
comment
what I'm saying? Like, I'm like,
100.
nah, you're not, you don't get that kind of access to my brain. So, so we just do what we do. And, but I think you're smart on that, and you can't, certainly there's things you shouldn't do in parenting or whatever, but I think homeschool is I don't know that I could have my kids today in a school like that. It's so hard. I think I would be doing the same thing today. And then, but you're right, man. You better teach your kids how to, how to take it, because they're going to be thrown into the world where they're so brutal, and social media is so brutal, and social media is
so brutal. just
decimating so many children, young girls, young guys, and they're so confused about who they are and what they're just, you know. So I'm kind of glad I didn't have that growing up.
It's been,
you know, just everybody knowing all, you know, just like getting so judged and looked at. And so, and in fact, even doing our TV show, you know, we had friends that told us, that was like, you don't need to do this. Like, you're just going to destroy your family. And because all they had known was reality TV people that families that had just been destroyed. And
they all fell apart.
But you know what we thought? Well, if we don't have the slot, then who else is going to have it? Some of the world, and they're going to be doing what they do. And if somebody doesn't, like, you know, we felt pretty prepared to go in and to be that light, you know, that bright light in there. And so I said, we'll take it on. And we did. I think there needs to be more people to step up and do that. It doesn't have to destroy your family. You know?
Yeah.
And it could have. I mean, I'm saying, you know, sin is sin, and we, you know, and it's tough. And so my kids grew up in it, which was interesting. It's one of the few things in life, most everything in life my kids will go through, I've already done, you know, get married, have a job, go to school, you know, all those things I've done, I have experience in. I never had experience in being famous at young age or being on TV. And so we were hoping, but you prepare them in the way that they go. And they've, you know, now I think a good sign is they all live right beside me. So we all live together in our little neighborhood.
Are living my dream. So in Idaho, we bought 20 acres, and now we're like buying a little more. And I'm like, we got to buy a little more. We got to build our own neighborhood. Like, we have to. My grandkids got to live here. I love that you guys have grandma and great grandma, and
everybody's right there. I built a little sidewalk so they can all ride their little things, and it's so fun when I get home. I can just see. I'll look up, and there's a couple of them coming here, and so.
Is it an actual neighborhood, or are you guys like really spread out? Like you just live in the same town?
No, they're close. I can hit all their houses with a set of golf clubs. So.
Nice.
We must build this. I love it so much.
We got one daughter across the highway, like across the street. She's not officially in the thing, but Sadie just built right beside us, and that was huge. I mean, and I was, you know, but I was intentional about it. Like you're like, you have to have it. I mean, I didn't want to be that guy, but I don't want to be this overbearing, like stating how it was going to happen. Once your kids marry someone else, well, there's another family, you know what I'm saying, that they want to live beside. So we didn't know that our kids would be living in Florida or wherever, you know, their spouse's family is. And so, and most of my kids ended up living off. Like Sadie lived in Nashville for a time. John Luke went to Liberty, Lynchburg. So they lived in different places, which I think is important too. I think that's great. Corey and I went to college and like 5 hours away from our hometown. That was great for us to get away from, you know, we had two pretty big families that were fairly influential back in our hometown. So it's good to go establish who we were. But then, coming back, and so I was intentional. I was like, we want to have, you know, all the things that we can have, and it's not necessarily physical things, you know. It's simple things. I mean, I do all the cooking in my house, and so I cook all the time, and so I have these big meals, and I've been gone about a week, so they're ready for me to come back. I don't know what they've been eating, but that became a huge thing. So I cook a lot, and so usually someone's over every night. You know, they'll come to eat dinner. We have that same family time that you saw at the end of Duck Dynasty. It's that same idea, and it gives them a break, and the food's got to be good. So, we do that together, and then we do the outdoors, and it's just all these things that we do, and it's so meaningful, and we're gone. I mean, like we're all over the world. Sadie is, and like my kids we do a lot of traveling, but having that space and that home where we can be together and just be near each other, and because a lot of it's just the little things that you don't, it may not seem like a big deal, but it is when you get older. Like you guys can think back of the big things. I just think back to how I grew up, and just being that we were on a dead end street right beside the river, and we would come home from school, and it's a long bus ride, and we just throw everything out. We'd grab our fishing poles and be gone, and we would stay gone till dark. We had no curfew. My dad was like, there was nowhere to go anyway. Just having fun, just being outside, just learning how to live, and all that. So really, ours is different. I mean, because we're in technically a neighborhood, but we got we got the pond, we got the place to fish, and we got, places to play games. And it was awesome during COVID. Our house was the spot. Yeah. It was the spot because you could be outside and you could have, we have a pickleball court now. So we do a lot of stuff like that. But it's not just so I was talking to somebody the other day and they were saying how they were going to put all this stuff in because it would make their kids. And I said, it's not I know a lot of people who have a lot of way nicer stuff than I have, and no one's ever there, you know? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just not, the spirit's not there. They don't have this thing where you want to be there and be a part of it. And I think you've got to be positive as now as grandparents, but as parents, and then as grandparents, but you got to be that positive influence. And Corey's parents are right there. Mine are, mom and dad we grew up like about 30 minutes away, like way down the boondocks. So, but we have a little place down there too, a little river house, we call it. That's where we fish a lot and ski and stuff. So we, on the river. So we stay connected, and it's work. It doesn't work for everybody, and not everybody has the luxury of that. And so you kind of have to do it from afar. And so, but it really works for us. So I was glad everybody came back.
I hope we can make that happen for ourselves. And congratulations, you are getting your 8th grandchild, correct? We were told.
Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations.
You're like, why do you know that?
Well, I was going back to a phone call I had today with Corey, and she said, Rebecca officially told everybody. I said, okay, because I forget.
If it's not okay to put out, we'll take it out.
No, it's good. No, she told, literally today.
Okay, perfect.
They had the party. They had the party, and I was not there. But she.
So is it a boy or a girl?
I can't say that.
I haven't released that. Okay,
I can't reveal that. I may or may not know. Yeah, when I said they had the party. But I'll let them reveal what that is. Exciting. But you've got a 50-50 chance.
Okay, well, you guys will each guess
But one. They're right there. Yeah, they're right there beside us as well. They're actually in the house that we filmed in for Duck Dynasty.
Cool.
So that's kind of cool.
Awesome.
But everybody's right there. We're all, what a fun time to get to hang out and do all this stuff with the family. So
can I ask one last question of you? Maybe some fatherly advice, since you're a little ahead in the season.
You can go longer.
Okay,
we got more time.
I appreciate it. So our daughter, you met our daughter out there. She's turning 18 years old this year.
What is her name? It's an unusual name.
Her name is Nevaeh. It's heaven spelled backwards. So to go back to your wordplay there.
Man, you must have had a bad epidural. Were you seeing things backwards and you're like, whatever heaven is backwards.
Dyslexic on the birth certificate.
Let's throw it that one. I just met her, and we're at an interesting place, and it's a hockey arena. It's where we're filming, and so I told her, I said, Nevaeh, if you need any ice cleaning, it's right here in this room. And she started laughing, and she was like, who is this guy?
You made a great memory for her, so thanks for that.
She's a big fan of your daughter, Sadie. So we love her podcast, and it's always so positive. We watched Sadie on Dancing with the Stars like back in the day, you know. So we were watching it, and he was like, "Oh, this has got to be so hard for Willie, like because of the outfits and everything." And then we heard that you were like vetoing outfits and stuff, and that would totally be him. He'd be like, "Come out here and let me see."
Well, so my question for you was, we're kind of in the stage of transition to where I'm letting go of my baby girl, my firstborn child. What was that transition like for you in becoming a grandparent?
How old is she?
She is turning 18 in like 2 months. So
I thought she was like 14.
No, is
it me, or does everybody start looking younger? Like,
absolutely.
I thought she was 14 years old.
We are little people. So like everyone thinks our 9-year-old's like, someone else came by and he goes 4, and he's like, I'm 9. So we just have little kids.
I think people are just, there's a girl that works for me, and I was like, how do you get out of school to work here? Like during the day, and she was like, I'm 19. I thought she was like 15. And so I was like, I think it's, I guess I just put it in the faith category. You know, I just don't like people who say one thing, like, I've got faith and God's in control. And then the minute something happens, and then they're like, it's like they're in control, right?
Right.
And then they just kind of like, I'm like, I thought it was all in, And so I think we have to have faith in God. And we're like, if I really trust that He's here and He's doing what He's doing, and I've given these kids over to, they're His, Yes. And so, and they've got to make their way and make their paths. And so, if I sat there and worried about all the things that could happen, man, that's a lot of things to worry about.
Guilty.
Are a hard one.
Guilty.
You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of, you know, I mean, I think we can certainly be smart, and we can certainly, as parents, you know, put in, you know, guardrails and, you know, and not make it easy for especially youngsters to, you know, with phones and all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things that they can do, and things that my kids struggle with as well. You know, it's not like all my kids were, there were battles, and, you know, that we had. And because I remember I was the same way, you know, I was like, yeah, but I just think people, they just worry a lot about kind of everything, like they're in control. And again, I'm like, well, I thought you thought God was in control. So
it's a good reminder, and it's something I've definitely been guilty of for sure. I try to lean on my faith, but it's just been unexpectedly more difficult than I anticipated going into it, and I don't have a simple explanation for it. So I appreciate.
Yeah, I didn't really. I mean, I just kind of. I mean, we have a lot of kids, and I was like, you know, they've got to. I mean, the way I grew up, you know, we were just pretty much, but it was all boys, so it was different. You know, it was like. I mean, it was different, but it was like you just had to figure it out. My wife always said, she said, Phil just kind of hot-wired y'all to God. Like, we didn't have a lot of rules. God, I mean, Phil's like, do what the Bible says. You'll be fine by me. And so it was Sadie and Bella, and they, like that. Rebecca came over, so she, most of her life, she got here at like 16. And so... yeah, just kind of trusted, and there were some of them guys that bring out and be like, "Oh man, this guy," you know, I was like, "Please," you know. But yeah, you've got to let them find it. And I just didn't want to be overbearing. I wanted them to felt like they had their own freedom and that they knew. But I was there for advice, and then I would, like I said, I would instill some rules and just say, "Look, you know, you got to be smart about this and not," and appeal to the Bible as well, and appeal to what you've taught them. And I mean, if they can ditch this faith thing, and then I don't know how much it was there anyway, you know, if they just chunk it and go like, hey, I want to go live like the world, you know, I mean, that's probably going to happen if they want to.
Yeah.
That's the choice we have. And so, and I think living our lives, that's why we need to live our lives in such a way where they see a model and they say, oh, you know, I like that, and not trying to be, you know, like you're saying one thing, but you're overbearing. Right. You're just like, yeah, and you're horrible. Making everybody nervous when they're all the little boys nervous or whatever. Because I'm thinking about them, and I'm thinking about their life, and I'm thinking about their parents, and it's the whole thing. I'm no better than them, and my kids aren't better than their kid, you know. And so, and they've, you know, whatever roads they've been down, you know. And so, and then if it ends up, you know, I always thought like if they end up getting married, that's part of my family. I've got to, you know, so be careful about disliking them too much.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you have to make nice.
Yeah, there's like, oh shoot,
this guy's gonna live in my neighborhood.
Yeah, just think about it. They're gonna be in your circle, and they're gonna be around your other kids. They're gonna be, you know, this is gonna be a real family relationship.
And you have to just open that up too, because that involves your grandchildren and everything like that. So yeah, it's been hard.
Well, my wife's parents weren't like super keen on us getting married, so yeah.
You guys got very young.
Yeah. So I remember what that felt like. You know, it was like, because you kind of feel like, man, these people don't believe in you, and they don't, you know, they're thinking, that's the best you can do. I'm not saying that's what they said. That's how I felt. You know, like that was kind of the feeling. It's like, man, I think I can, you know. And so be careful, because it pushed us closer together.
So Romeo and Juliet.
You know what I'm saying?
I try to be aware of that.
So you have to be careful, because you may just push them right into the last thing you want to happen, and you may push it right there.
Oh man, it's hard.
Corey said something the other day. She said, and I don't know that I ever heard her say this. She was like, "Don't make me make a choice. You know, don't make me have to choose."
The ultimatum.
Yeah, it's like don't. So I'm really careful about drawing those lines.
Right.
Man, because I don't want to draw. Because if I draw it, I'm like,
you're committed.
I drew that line, and so just be careful. You draw that line, because you're like, shoot, I just drew the line, you know.
It's like the best advice you've ever gotten.
No, I appreciate it. Because you know what, you've done well. Your kids are very well adjusted. They're great kids. You guys are a great family, like I said. So I take your words of advice into very serious consideration. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
When you live in such a small town, it's so hard, because you are limited, especially as a young person, to And our town we looked it up. It was 198 people. When we moved there, it was 207. So I don't know who moved out or died or whatever happened. But I mean, we upped the population.
I would think you knew that. At 200 people, I would think you knew exactly.
It's very spread out.
Like, Ed just lay. Yeah, that was Ed.
Everyone's like 100 acres
everybody,
apart.
Well, I guess, if you're that spread out.
Ranching community. We live like in the mountains of North Idaho. So
when everybody's probably hiding out doing their own thing anyway.
Yeah.
So it's probably not the kind of people who want to just be chitty chatty.
Yeah.
Very much so.
If you live where you live and do what you do, you're probably going, there's a lot of parts of society I want to just kind of do my own
if
thing.
Someone's coming up the driveway, you're like, who is that?
That's where we were. I mean, anybody that drove it through, we'd all run out there. Who's here?
Especially when you do have some kind of a presence or anything like that, because you never know. Like, people will sometimes send us overheads of our property and just weird stuff.
Oh, yeah, we've got all that. We got all kind of threads and, pictures of your property.
No fun.
Found you, stuff like that. It's
like, not fun side of unfortunately well known.
It's been interesting, but I think eventually we're gonna take our kids out to Louisiana. It's on the list because
you guys come on down. You're welcome.
Such a neat place.
I'll show you around.
Be like Jesus, just invite ourselves over to your house.
I'm giving you the invitation.
No, it's on camera. So hey.
Oh man,
I'm giving you the invite right now.
Well, they saw Princess and the Frog, and they were like, "We got to go there." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to take you guys to that part."
Have you been to Louisiana?
We've never.
Oh, y'all need to come down.
Oh, I'd love to.
We want to show the kids an alligator, and they want to ride on the swamp
We just had
boats.
one. Yeah, we just had one on my property.
Scary.
Yeah, like a 4-footer out there.
We're grizzly bears, so you get the alligators, we get the grizzly bears.
Yeah, I know both. Yeah, probably equally as frightening. I'm not really scared of alligators, but I'm really scared of bears.
And we have to tell the kids, like, stay away from the tree line and things like that, because they're out right now. We've had some big male grizzlies on our, like, right in our yard. And
I did a caribou hunt in Alaska, and it was really close.
That's awesome.
They ate all my caribou.
Oh, really?
They ate all the meat.
Oh, bummer.
Probably 30 yards from us. And so I look at my guy, and I was like, "What are we supposed to do? Something?" He goes, "As long as they're eating the caribou and not us, let them eat the caribou." So, they ate all the caribou.
Wow.
Well, if you guys ever go hunting up in the North Idaho area, you'll have to let us know.
I've hunted in Idaho, believe it or not.
Really?
Probably the furthest away from me. I was around the border of the what do they call it? Where the desert, the high desert, at the southern border.
Southern Idaho. Okay.
Yeah. Really hard hunting. I got one, but
it's a whitetail.
No, elk. Yeah.
Oh, elk. Okay.
Archery elk. Yeah.
Nice.
We had those in our front yard the other day too.
All the time.
Chased them suckers for almost 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, it was totally different because there was no cover, and so they're down these little, I don't know what y'all call them, but they were calling them little valleys, but they called them something with the little trees in them. So they would get down in there, and they would call back at you. They just wouldn't come.
Right.
And so they'd bugle at you, but you just had to pretty much go get them. So So I love Idaho. Yeah, I love the state.
Well, come on down. We have the official invite too. Yeah, it's we've got moose and elk and whitetail, and you just sit on the patio and just wait, and they just come wandering up. It's kind of not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair to them, but sometimes you just wake up in the morning, there'll be 20, 30 head of elk just
that's awesome.
eating in the garden. It's like, get out of my garden. So turkeys are out of control.
So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this, agreeing to do this. Where can folks find your book?
They can find it on Amazon or pretty much anywhere they, sells books. So I'm sure you can find it easily, but a lot of people go on Amazon. But
I ordered mine on Amazon.
And the little small one there is that's the really small one. You just throw that in your Bible. So that's probably why I wrote the book. I wanted that book. I wanted after I shared my faith with someone, I wanted to say, here, these are all the verses written down, and so there's stuff in there that can help somebody. If you share with somebody, you're like, I don't know if they got it or not, because a lot of people don't make that decision. They may take a while to read through for themselves. And I wrote the little book. There, and then this is the bigger book with all the stories in it. So it's really
awesome.
fun.
I will be reading both.
Yeah, I'm going to share it with my dad because he will witness to people at a gas station.
Everywhere he goes.
He should love it.
Yes, he's gonna love it. So we appreciate your time so much. It was such an honor to meet you.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.